that was really the GRI's focus for the first number of years. But increasingly, people came to recognize that those factors also had an impact on the company or the organization. So it wasn't only the Brundtland lens that said the organization's impact on its environment for long-term sustainability, future generations, but the other way around as well, that those factors also have an impact on the organization. So you'll see that playing out in the history that I'm going to show you today. I think importantly, and this is quite significant, is this Ocean Tomo report, which says that the investors are leveraging more and more the intangible asset value to create a market value on the stock exchanges of the world. And this is the S&P 500 view, but have a look at how it's changed over the years. I mean, just look at that jump into the 2000s. And this really was the tipping point or the changing point between the 20th century thinking into the 21st century thinking, is more and more these intangible assets, this impact that the organization has and on the environment, and the environment has on the organization. And it's not the annual financial statement that these investors were looking at for a market value. So look at today. In 2020, we have 90% of the market value is made up by intangible assets. So let's just understand what these intangible assets are, because surely our investors would want to see us reporting on them. So let's have a look from a company's perspective in terms of what are our stakeholders asking from us in terms of reporting on these intangible assets. Well, first of all, you would have seen that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is talking in his CEO letter on organizational purpose. So what is the purpose of the organization? And making sure that that very, very central point of an organization is considering the long-term impacts on the natural environment and society, as well as the economy. So not only to think of the financial factors, but to think of also the non-financial or sustainability factors right in the very core of the purpose. So Larry Fink was asking CEOs, tell us your purpose, and we want to know that it considers the long term. The second kind of intangible asset is what strategic time frame are you looking at? Investors have been forcing more and more in the last couple of years in the 20th century to get from annual reporting to quarterly reporting to monthly reporting of financial information. But what Larry's saying is that, and what many are calling for, is in your strategic timeframes, you need to look at your impact over time, because that's what has led us to be where we are today, is the very long-term impact of various behaviors of organizations. The other intangible assets are things like reputation and stakeholder perceptions, which we didn't really consider in the old days beyond what our customers were saying, the voice of the customer. Also in today's world, and we've seen it specifically on the pandemic, is what are we doing about our supply chain? How are we supporting them? Are we monitoring how they're impacting their environments? Are they using child labor, for example? So these are the kinds of things that we need to start reporting on. What about human rights and our social impacts? Think about mining organizations and energy organizations and the impact on the society within their operating or extracting resources. There's a tremendous social impact there, both positively and negatively. So let's have a look at that. Of course, the impact on resources, organizations using manufacturing water-based products, using tremendous amounts of water for cleaning meat products. What are our resource impacts? And not only on our natural resources, which are kind of world-free resources, and use of oxygen, for example, in putting in our oxygen bottles for the pandemic to treat patients. But beyond that, what about our uses of intellectual property resources? What about our uses of our relationship resources? And the Integrated Reporting Council talks about the 6 capitals in its International Integrated Reporting Framework. So what are our resources beyond financial resources. Of course, the tone from the top, as we hear in the fish rots from the head, of course it rots from the head. So what are you doing around your leadership and governance? What does it look like? What kind of people do you have on board? What are their competencies? What is the structure? So that kind of information is becoming more and more important. And then, of course, how are you measuring success? Are you measuring success in a short term financially based, or are you measuring success in the longer term around real value that's beyond financial? So these are real factors that are coming into the market value